Patricia.Castillo. And we are here. Today is our Wednesday afternoon home buying seminar. We do it every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. We do it on a Zoom call. You're welcome to come in and participate with us. Or you can watch it live streamed on YouTube and Facebook and different social media. If you come on the Zoom call, we can get you on, ask questions live. If you come on the other social media, then feel free to put your questions in the chat box, and we'll do our best to get your questions on air and get them answered. So Patricia, big week in real estate this week. What's going on? What's new?
Yes. Well, we're closing deals every day, Bill. So
nice.
Yeah. So I'm working with some buyers right now to get them pre-qualified for their home, starting their home search. And a couple had, a few credit glitches that we're also working on. So that's really exciting. Not only are we getting their credit cleaned up, but we're also getting them prepared to start their home buying search. So, from what I've been reading, we are expecting more inventory as the summer market comes in. And it's a great time to buy a home. So definitely on path to help clients achieve their dream of home ownership.
Well, there's an ancient saying that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And I was just thinking that if you think about the best time to, I'm going to have to meet some people here. If you think about the best time to buy a house was, 20 years ago, houses, have gone up in value 4 or 5 times or more. And so does that mean you missed out? And the reality is that in times of inflation, everything goes up in value, including housing. So this could be a great time if you can afford it. It could be a great time to buy a house. It might be a little more challenging emotionally, but certainly it can be very rewarding if you get it at the right time now and hold on to it for the next 20 years, right?
Absolutely.
We saw interest rates. Just a quick recap. Patricia was sharing with us before the call started that this is Home Buying Month, the National Association of Realtors. We're really excited. Yay! Home buyers. And then to celebrate that, interest rates went up today. Not quite to the cap again where they were, but we went from 5.25 on Friday to 5.47, just below 5.5%. So the mortgage rates are again threatening to go up and causing the price of cost to go up. I think again, but as a buyer, there's less buyers as well. That means you have more of a chance to get something, and sellers are having to hold on to price increases right now. So this could be the perfect time to send them to get involved right now, right?
Yes, and that's what I'm encouraging my clients to do, because there are, some of those buyers did get priced out of the market or they just took a back seat to the process. And right now it's, there's fewer buyers on the market that are looking to buy. And now we're going to start entering a market where there's more inventory. So that's just going to increase your chances of getting into that next home.
Yeah. So this is the chance that maybe you've been waiting for. If you were frustrated last year because you're one of 10 or 15 offers on a property, this could be the chance you actually get in this time and get your offer accepted and get the house you've been looking for. So we hope to make that happen. So Patricia, what's happening with lenders? I know that the loan applications have dropped a lot. Have you noticed more loan officers reaching out to you looking for business?
Yes, I have actually in the last couple of weeks. And, we're seeing that shift right now where you really have to dig in deep to find the business and also stay close to your clients and keep in close communication with them, because you want to make sure that they're also not losing that focus of where they're at, because they might be really close and maybe just a little tired. But yes, I have seen some lenders that are even coming out of the business and getting into a different side of, real estate, just because what we were talking about last week, how a lot of lenders were really focused on refinance business. And that's how they were producing, every month was just off of the refinance business. But we're not in that market anymore. And so you really have to work with a lender that's familiar and not just familiar, but really proficient in sales and purchases and knows how to navigate the transaction. And as you had mentioned last week, calling the listing agent when an offer has been made and just staying on top of the escrow as well. I mean, the lender's job is very critical as well. So it's important to have a good lender, strong lender that you're working with that's knowledgeable in purchases and that's going to do a good job for the client, get them through that process.
And I think that a lot of customers suffered not getting the support and service they needed from loan officers. There were a handful of good ones who for the last few years made a good living helping buyers, but companies overall were so enamored with refinance business, they didn't give buyers the attention and service I think they need. I'll share with you a fascinating website. It's called thetruthAboutMortgage.com. There's a long list of mortgage layoffs, mergers, and closures. This was done yesterday, and he had a list of how many job cuts. Now, this was a common thing in 2007 when the mortgage industry was falling apart. But what happened is he continued this list and updated it with the latest updates. And you can see, for example, Costco Mortgage, they had a program that canceled. And so many other company names, many of which you might recognize, cut significant numbers of their staff and are continuing to cut significant numbers of their staff. And you can see how widespread that is. Mm-hmm. And so, and what happened was these companies were making a living, I think, fairly so on refinances. But now customers, who want to buy property are squeezing in. They got to sharpen their pencil. You got to get their credit cleaned up a little bit. They got to get some bills paid off.
Right.
And they need a little more attention. And so fortunately, we work with lenders who've been doing this through the last period of time as well. But this is the opportunity for a buyer to get the attention they need to get into the house that they want.
So. Absolutely. Yeah, 100% agree. This other lender that just dropped out of the business is going into leasing, commercial leasing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's somebody that you and I know. So I'll share that information with you later.
Please do. I'll be always curious to hear about people.
Yeah,
Wish her good luck.
She's actually winding down her, I was starting to send her some referral business. And, where she's winding down her pipeline. So there is, another loan officer that is still in place and intact that she was working with side by side. So, we're working with them as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's the business we're in, and it's a challenging market.
Mm-hmm.
What I can say is, so go ahead.
Oh, no, I'll just comment after you, Bill, because it has to do with something I heard about this week in the broker room of, complaints with clients and real estate agents too. So I think it just goes back to that communication piece that we need to really be top notch, because if you're not explaining the process properly to your client and later on they feel like they missed out on something, they're going to be really upset. And right. If they don't get into the house that they wanted to get into, or they feel like, the agent wasn't performing for them or right. communicating what all of their options were, right. That's basically not providing that good quality service to your client. So you're doing a disservice to your client. And that's one of the things that we heard about from our broker this morning was that's one of the chief complaints that they've gotten this week, because I think the last 2 years, people were just so busy and pushing all of the deals through that a lot of the really important details were sometimes missed.
Wow. Well, and so this is, yeah, I think what's clear is you have, in a hot market, you can cut corners and get away with it. And the rising value of everything kind of covers up mistakes, covers up shortcomings. But when the market, pauses a bit or catches up, then those mistakes can be costly. If the house is going up in value 10, 20% per year, nobody cares. If the value is flat, and if a buyer feels they overpaid by 5 or 10% because you misled them, then that becomes a problem to the seller, to the agents. And so this is the time to make sure you're working with professionals who are sharp, have their details together, are protecting you, protecting your business, protecting your finances. And the reason why we have these details, these compliance issues, is to protect our clients. It's not to create more work for ourselves. It's because we want to make sure that customers are protected. And when we do that, we follow those rules and procedures, then our customers end up with, equity in a house. In the long run, they can be protected. But when we cut corners, we expose our clients to litigation and lawsuits and complaints and things like that. So it's just really, really a time that changes and these transitions happen. This is where professionals stand out. And the other thing, if you were in the call, we had Tony Robbins, speaker Dragon on the other day. He was saying that the difference between part-time people and full-time people is full-time people, they're committed. This is like me. This is my business. I don't have a choice.
Right.
I have to have happy customers or I'm out of business. When you're part-time, you have happy customers. And then when you do a bad job and there's no more happy customers, you go into some other job. But this is where professionals shine in a market like this. So you want to make sure you work with professionals and work with people committed to helping you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, look, this is meant to be participative. So if anybody on the call, I see a few people lingering in the background, you're welcome to raise your hand in the Zoom call or put it in the chat box. If you want to unmute yourself and just jump in family style, we're glad to take questions. Who's got a question here? We can help you guys with regarding buying property. Anybody? No?
Now's the time, folks.
Now's the time.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we continue to keep our fingers on the market and, constantly just going to Zillow and Redfin looking for something around Costa Mesa is, I think, where we, decided we really want to try to lay down roots. But I haven't seen prices really reduced at all. I've seen a couple little token $10,000 reduction just to get the label price reduced. I think they're trying to attract some attention. Sure. And I'm a strong believer that prices really blew up because of cheap money. That's what did it. Demand and people knowing they had to reinvest to avoid inflationary, inflation eating away their equity. Mm-hmm. People pulled the money out and bought more real estate, strong rental market. But I'd really like to know, and I may have asked this on a prior occasion, I'd really like to know your guys' opinions on, with higher rates, do you see a much bigger drawdown coming in pricing? It's all supply and demand based, right? So people say there's still such a high demand for housing, but
there is. I mean, there's a question. There's more people than houses, and our population has been growing faster than the number of new houses. So there's no question. There's more demand than there is supply. I just saw today. I don't spend a lot of time tracking new home builders. That's a different business, and they're not very common in the markets I work in, Los Angeles, for example. But just from an economic point of view, I saw today on CNBC, one of the chairmen of one of the home building companies explaining, even though their stocks are down, like a lot of stocks are right now, for a variety of reasons, in the long run, there's going to be more people and people need to live somewhere. And one thing people will do is buy a house to live in. And you can go out, to eat less, and you can go to less movies or less vacations, but people want a house that's safe where they can raise their kids or family. And there's more families being formed than there are houses being built. Significantly, has been for a long time, particularly in Southern California, where Orange County and LA, we're not building any new houses, right? So you might say it's maybe not true in Iowa or Kansas as much, or Florida or Texas, where they build so much. We're not building anything in Los Angeles, nothing. Population has gone up tremendously. So I do think that demand is going to be there no matter what. I think that a buyer thinking that prices are going to go down, I think it's just not going to happen. I don't see that. I think what happens is we're the same house that maybe a year ago, the only house in the market at the lowest price would have 10 or 11 offers. Today might only have 3. That's the difference you're going to see. But
I'm just confused so deeply that there's this many people that can drive markets for $1.5 million houses. I mean, you just don't want, you got to have a really good income for one to qualify for $1 million loan. You got to be making usually 3 times your gross, right? So 18 grand a month or something. And so that's nothing to sneeze at. And then, low debt. So it just blows my mind that this many people are making $250,000, $350,000, $400,000 a year to be able to put the money aside to buy the house. They need, $500,000, and they're still going to be paying $6 to $7 grand a month. Yeah. What do all these people do? There's not enough jobs here to support that. All right, is everybody get rich and then move here? Is that what happened?
Well, I think that California has 2 classes of people now. We have people get paid a lot of money. We got people paid nothing. There's not much
Yeah.
in the middle. And so, I know here in LA, there's West Side Pavilion. I don't know, you're from Orange County, I think, Kevin, right?
Yeah.
West Side Pavilion on Pico Boulevard, like near Westwood Boulevard, just east of the 405 freeway, was one of the largest retail shopping centers in the area. It was the largest in the area. Google bought it and turned it into an office space, and they're going to fill it with Google employees. We have in Culver City on Pico, on Robertson and Venice. I mean, it's just everywhere you turn, there's new buildings going up. Apple, Amazon, Google, bringing in 1,000 employees. Now, part of it is they're relocating employees from the Silicon Valley, or they're replacing growth with people from the Silicon Valley. We happen to have a lot of university students between USC, UCLA, Cal State, Long Beach, Dominguez. Same's true in other big markets, New York, Virginia. We have a lot of colleges and new students. These companies, they're growing. These huge corporations are making fortunes. But it's not like in the old days where they have, I worked at Hughes Aircraft Company out of college where we had maybe in Southern California, 100,000 employees. Google might have 20,000 or 10,000. It's not the same number. It's not middle class or upper income jobs. So there are a lot of people coming into town making those kind of salaries, and they tend to be, no kids.
Yeah.
One of the ramifications of same-sex couples, they tend not to have as many children as traditional, or what they're called intersex marriages. So you have less kids, and I think there's also a kind of cultural thing now of more people being single and not getting married till later. They have a lot of income and they can afford to live in more expensive properties. So yeah, there's those houses, they're not slowing down. The prices are not going down. What is happening, what you will see is there are certain sellers who are selling their house, maybe here in LA, for $2 million, and they're going to move to Florida. And their plan was to buy a house there for $500,000 and pocket the rest. Now that house gone to $800,000 or $900,000, and so they need to put more cash in, or they have to borrow money. And the ones who are going to borrow money, their interest rate went up. They're getting deterred. So you have sellers now who are going to. You have less sellers coming on the market because some of those who were going to borrow money when they sold, the payments got up and they decided they can stay where they're at, and they have a lower rate. They refinanced down to 2.75 or 3, and to buy a house at 5.5%, the payment goes up. So you have less sellers now moving. So what you have is even more. You have the same demand increasing on a diminishing supply. So yeah, there's a lot of people moving in with a lot of money. It is shocking, but there's a lot of it.
So have you studied recent, inflow, outflow, or immigration, migration? Because the last time I looked at it, there was a net loss of residents, at least out of the Southern California area.
So what you're referring to is interstate migration. So California is declining in that people are moving from California to other states. Overall, California's population is increasing because we're bringing in so many people internationally. One thing is to watch is that H-1B visa program. What is that? Well, that's Google and Amazon and Apple bringing in engineers from foreign countries like India and other countries where they're cheaper. So basically, really, if you think about it, they're really hurting American middle-class engineers by bringing in lower-priced ones. But then those engineers work at Google, Amazon, and Apple for 4, 5, 10 years and run a marketplace and increase their value, and they become higher-priced employees. And the Silicon Valley area, the real estate's so expensive that they are relocating some of those divisions to other areas like Southern California or like Virginia, New York. So yeah, we have a net migration out to other states of California, but we have more people coming into California than going out overall. Our population has increased tremendously.
Cool. All right.
Two
Thanks for
things.
your perspective.
We have these H-1B visas coming in and international people migrating here, and then we have very low income people coming here as well. We have both of those factors. And so there are businesses that make money off those low priced employees. And really that's another problem is, we have this kind of culture now that is profiting off of immigrants who come here who are, get paid very little, but puts pressure on the whole system, So challenging times in California, but I would say this: we're not building any more houses, and we've got more people coming in. So that means can only mean one thing: prices going to go one way when that pressure's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Demand. I mean, it's perfect weather. The beach is here. There's a lot of great things going on in Southern California that it's hard to count out.
Yeah. I mean, I used to live in Florida and I'd love to move there. We're not going because my wife and I have our first grandchild. He lives 4 blocks from us. So unless I want to get divorced, which I couldn't afford to move, not to mention she'd kill me before I could divorce her. But we're not going anywhere. But definitely there's a lot to offer. And when I compare myself to look at other areas, the weather's unbelievable. Now the quality of life is a lot less. One of the things we in California don't appreciate, unless you travel other states. When's the last time, Kevin, you were traveled out of California?
Yeah, I go quite often to Seattle where I have rental properties.
So I can't speak to Seattle as much because I think it's similar to Los Angeles. But when you get to suburban areas, right? Not in Miami, Florida, when you go to Boca Raton, or when you go to or Aventura or Sunrise, you get out of the main city, it's so much nicer than life. Like here in LA, because of all the crime, every market is understaffed. Like everywhere I go to check out, you wait in line. There's not enough people to help you get stuff. You wait, to get at the pharmacy and such. That's not true elsewhere. It's because we're understaffed because those stores are losing money because of the crime going on here. And it really affects our lifestyle here in Southern California. Now, if you can order everything online and have it all delivered, I guess it doesn't matter as much. But restaurants closing. I saw another one today that we go to that's closed because of the pressure financially. So it is definitely challenging times, the lifestyle here. On the other hand, I went for a walk at noon today. It was just beautiful and tree-lined streets and hills and views and such. So it's a mixed bag for sure.
What about how are landlords surviving here I know this isn't so much a landlord call, but another thing that we've thought about is just buying a multiplex, and sacrifice our lifestyle a little bit, but then we're staying in the rental game and allowing others to help us make that payment. And but yet I'm scared to death of that whole Southern California, most of it's LA County, but Orange County as well, picking up the rent restrictions, landlord restrictions, and there's people out there, landlords that haven't been able to collect rent for 2 years. They're still claiming a landlord emergency or, an emergency, state of emergency, which prevents landlords from properly evicting people. I don't even know how landlords can hold on to their properties. Now, as a rental property owner in Washington, I've had numerous checks come in from the state that's helping catch people up.
Right.
So I know the government up there is finally on the bandwagon and putting stuff together for landlords, but down here I've seen no relief.
Well, I think that, I heard a great presentation by Anthony Walker. He's like one of the leading brokers for multifamily in the South Bay. And he described how his company has done so well through COVID. And what he emphasized was, and I see this in successful management teams on something that I invest in multifamily in other states of Florida and Texas. And what I've noticed the good management teams always emphasize is the importance of a sense of community and service to the tenants. And I think that, I've lived, before we bought our house, I lived in a large apartment building. My daughter and son-in-law live in a big apartment building managed by, owned by Donald Sterling, one of the largest, landlords in Los Angeles, former owner of the Clippers. And, in those places, they really treat the tenants poorly. Now, there might be a lot of reasons why. A lot of it's the regulation of the city makes it very uneconomical. But what happens is when the tenants don't feel committed, that's when they start not paying the rent and causing problems. But what Anthony was describing was how they screen so heavily when they put somebody in. Now, again, there's laws now being limiting what you can do, but he was describing how they screen for the credit profiles and the personality profiles, and they really are competing to get the best tenants possible. And as a result, they were collecting, I think, 95% of their rents. Citywide in Los Angeles, I think 11% of tenants haven't paid any rent for 2 years. So there are a lot of small mom and pop, landlords who got caught. And I know a number of my clients were, they didn't really keep up with the sophisticated techniques, and they ended up with a tenant who took advantage of them. And there's professional scam artists who haven't paid rent in 2 years, and they're never
Yeah.
going to pay rent again. Once you get behind, it's like you'll never pay it again, because now you have no reference. You can't get an apartment somewhere else, and they're just never going to pay on time. And so that's a problem. But I do think the answer to that is to this. You need professionals to guide you, professional property managers who can help you get a good tenant and or tenants, and have a system in place to stay in touch with them and follow things very closely. So I would not personally invest in real property in Los Angeles or California. I just think the laws, as bad as the laws are, they're going to get worse. I think states committed to being more. This is the plan. I don't think this is a aberration or it's a mistake. I think this is the plan in the long run. In San Francisco, they're almost taking the property away from the owners. They're charging now. They're charging for vacancies. So here, if you're a landlord and you can't find a good tenant for whatever reasons, and your property's vacant, I forget the exact term, 2 months or 6 months, they're going to charge you for it. And in essence, that's just taking your property away. You can't even let it sit there and appreciate. You have to pay the money. So you have to be very careful with tenant property and know what you're doing and be professional about it.
Thanks for the comments.
Sure. So I belong to the Apartment Owner Association. They're really good at bringing information, what's going on in the market, and good vendors and such. So if you're going to invest, want to make sure you get some good people. And then on Wednesday afternoons, we do a call at 2:00 on multifamily investing, which I think is an opportunity for people who can't buy a house. You can get a property, you can get great tax deductions, you can get great cash flow, and you get appreciation on some of the properties available today. So if you're interested in that, reach out to me. Okay, I think we're about time to wrap up. Kevin, thanks for jumping in and great chatting with you as always. Lisa, any final comments you want to wrap up on today, or anything we missed or covered that didn't cover that we need to cover?
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Kevin was mentioning earlier, where all these people coming with money to make these cash offers. And because so many people were being bought out during, the last 2 years, being beat out with their offer, there were companies that started designing programs specifically to empower, the communities to make offers and get their offers accepted. So like, for example, HomeLight, they started a program where they basically make a seller into a cash buyer. So they will, vet the seller. They're going to look at all of their financials to make sure that they qualify for a loan. They look at the property value that they're going to sell, and they basically back their offer with the funds from HomeLight. So that essentially turns you into the seller into a cash buyer. And
Nice.
if for some reason you don't get a buyer, you're still wanting to sell your house, maybe you have plans to move out of state or to another county, HomeLight will still guarantee that they'll buy your house. So either way, the seller will still sell their home if they're looking to buy. And some sellers do have an urgency to move, and they may be scared of, not getting their offer accepted and being stuck with having to sell their home and not having anywhere to go. So there were some companies that came out with these programs that started offering sellers, a cash offer scenario so that they can move forward with the sale of their property, knowing that they will have a sale once they're ready to move. So that's another way that people have been coming in with cash offers.
Nice. So call Patricia with the details on how to make your offer into a cash offer and be stronger. And I have a friend who did that in Florida, actually, bought a house there and he had a house here the use for his equity to get that to happen. And
how does that work? Do they just, because you're still borrowing money, right? So they pre-qualify you and fund you as a cash buyer? Or?
Yeah, they pre-qualify you first to make sure that the property you're selling, it has enough equity. And they also check your credit, your financials, to make sure that you do have that financial solvency. So there's steps that you need to take. It's like a 2-part application process. But essentially they are offering that money to you to make that cash offer, and they're going to recoup it once your home sells. So
We're trying not to sell anything, so I don't know if that would apply to us because my
you're
wife
trying
and
to buy.
yeah, we want to buy, but we don't want to sell because my motto is never sell. Hold on to it, grow your portfolio. I mean, I'd trade it if I could get into a multiplex because these are usually single family or duplex houses, but I would, I'd rather scale up if anything, but yeah, never, I'm like that, never sell. I need a smart person to sit me down and tell me when I need to sell.
Well, the cash flows, the time, it's like a portfolio. The time to sell is when you can, buy something and then restructure your debt percentage that's going to achieve your financial goals. And that's why often people find themselves in a position to sell is, when the loan balance goes down enough to be below 25, 30% of the value of the property, if rates are good enough and you have to be careful with all that, or if the rate you have is setting to expire, if you got a bought a property 5 years ago and you have a 7-year fixed rate, you want to extend it again, the prepayment plans expire. That's why people often will either refinance or sell the property and buy a bigger property to reposition the equity.
So that's exactly what I just did. I just took a rental I owned for cash. Well, I only had 50 grand on it, and I just refied that just 2 weeks ago. So now I'm sitting on money. It's slowly eroding from inflation, but I need to replace that money into something else. So, but we're doing one more. We're doing one more property refi. So, we'll have a big down payment. But again, I don't believe in putting big down payments down. It's just like having money in the bank with no interest. Then again, there's arguments against that because if you are buying something with a bigger down payment, you're buying a bigger, more expensive house. Theoretically, in Southern California, that is going to keep going up.
Theoretically, and I think that in the long run, that's proven to be the case too. And I don't see why that would change. I don't know that it will go up as fast as it has, but it certainly seems that there's no place for values to go but up, especially until some sellers have to sell, right?
Yeah, and I've been meaning to sign up, get in front of your probate classes. I think that's a great way to find a deal.
Can be. Okay, good. Well, look, that's a whole nother perspective, buying investment property. And appreciate the input and discussion there. But did you say any last comments you want to say before we sign off for today?
Yeah, I just wanted to circle back on our, credit repair expert that we had on the call about 2 months ago. We had Jeff on the call, and don't let little obstacles like that scare you. They're just obstacles, and we can help you get through that rough patch. So this is a good time to get the ball rolling if you're interested in applying for a home loan or just getting your credit repaired. I mean, we can help you with that as well.
Nice. Okay. Well, look, we do this call every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. We live stream it into YouTube and Facebook and record it for social media. You can catch Patricia there or me there and other people, friends like Kevin and Raina. Appreciate you guys jumping in today. Thanks so much for joining, watching, and as always, make this your best week ever. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Patricia.